Guys, we are here in Module 1. This is all about your customer persona, understanding your customer. You have a worksheet in your workbook, and we're going to talk through that right now. The first thing I want to remind you of is your customer is the hero of the story your business is trying to tell. If we want to help them tell their story, we first need to start with who our customer is. We need to get to the heart, who she is and what she wants and what drives her by identifying all the characteristics we can possibly dream up about her. Why is this important? Well, you will see throughout this course that we will tie back to this customer persona in every single module. Another thing, and another reason why I want you to spend time identifying your customer persona right now, is you never know where this information can be used. It could be products or content, website, anything like that. I want you to take a moment to identify her problems and pain points. You have a worksheet in your workbook to help you identify some demographic information. And then you also have a worksheet in your workbook to help you identify her pain point. Persona worksheet is pretty basic. The pain point worksheet is a little bit more in depth, so I'm gonna walk you through that right now. Okay, we're gonna talk through your customer's pain points. Your customer wants something. What does she want? He or she, what do they want in relation to your business? Your customer also wants something good. It's something that's going to improve their life. They are always looking for a solution or a fix to something. The solution or the fix is not usually what you're going to sell, but it's always going to be what they are looking for. I want you to identify your customer's problems, their internal problems, their external problems. I want you to identify her problems using this worksheet. It's helpful to look at each of those 4 pain point areas from an individual perspective and then holistically from an entire perspective, because you're probably not going to end up with 4 different products for each pain point. Okay, the next thing I want to talk about is why you need to do everything in your power to focus on one customer only, especially if you're starting out. I learned this lesson the hard way when I had a wholesale business, and my business found itself stuck in the transition from a very retail-oriented culture and society to all of a sudden everything was moving online. I started that business before people even had e-commerce websites and found that more and more companies were starting to go direct to consumer. This left me in the position of having to talk to 2 customers at one time. So anytime I put a message out there on social media, I was speaking to wholesale customers and direct to consumer or retail customers. And this got very confusing when it came to creating content. So if you do have to have multiple customers in your business, I would encourage you to print out extra copies of the exercises in this module and run through each of those for each different customer that you feel like you're serving. Let me pause for a moment and say that you getting to know your ideal customer is going to be a continual and constantly evolving process that you are going to come back to repeatedly. You can't come back to it too much. There's no way you can over-focus on your customer. A customer survey is a great way to ask your customers who they are, what they want or need, and to help you further identify their problems and pain points. I would encourage you to do a customer survey at least once a year. Throughout the course, we're going to be referencing how you can utilize surveys in all areas and all systems of your business. There are a few questions that you're going to want to ask for sure on your survey. Your customer's age, your customer's gender, your customer's location, where do they live, income level, and you'll be surprised at how many people are willing to answer that question, especially when the multiple choice answers are bracketed. So you'll say, does your household make $150,000? And people are usually pretty prepared to answer in a very general method on that question. And then the last question you're going to want to ask for sure is their education level. In fact, if the first survey you send out is only those 5 questions, you're good. You're well on your way. I love it. I've also included some more in-depth questions on a sheet in your workbook when you want to ask your customers for a more in-depth survey. I would also encourage you to keep a running list of survey questions that you like and that you've found when you're answering surveys yourself. Okay, let's talk really quickly about survey method There are a few that I'm familiar with that I would recommend. SurveyMonkey, JotForm, or plain old Google Forms is often super helpful. Another thing that you might want to keep in mind when you are creating a survey is, do you need to provide an incentive? The more questions you ask of your audience or your customers in a survey, the less likely they are going to be to complete that survey. If you're asking a lot of questions, you're going to want to for sure provide a pretty good incentive, and that could be like a drawing for a gift card or maybe a cool free printable or some type of freebie. The more questions you ask, the bigger the incentive that you provide needs to be. Next, you're going to want to review any results from your survey. Excel spreadsheet is going to come in super handy here. You're going to want to quantify the results. In addition to that, you're going to want to start a list of your customers' language. Identify the words that they are using to describe their problems as well as your product and services. Now, one thing that you're going to remember is with your customer is you want to use their language because you're trying to be a part of their story and their journey. You do not want to ask them to ever adopt your language. So a survey is going to help you understand if the internal language or whatever you're calling your products and services is sticking with them, or are they calling your products and services or their problems something else? You're going to want to use their language, not yours. One last thing you might also consider, and I would recommend redoing the customer persona exercises that we talked about at the beginning of this lesson every time you finish doing a customer or an audience survey. That's it for your first lesson. I can't wait to see you in the next one. If you have any questions, remember you can post them in the Slack group where we will be having a conversation about all of this, or you can click the link below to submit your questions via our Google form. I'll see you in the next lesson.